It's the SKOR North Twins Show.
All right, SKOR North Twins Show, extra innings. Declan Goff live here from Target Field. That's AJ Fredrickson back at the Fredrickson household. Hit the like button, subscribe button for Minnesota Twins content here on your YouTube channel or on your podcast feed. A 5-star rating, too, would go a long way for us on Apple, Spotify, the SKOR North app. Also on the SKOR North app, some great listener reward options. There's a Roku TV. You can enter for a stay-and-play package with the Meadows, so go check that out, too. So, Age, today's episode is inspired by Robbie B., who has been messaging the SKOR North YouTube channel like crazy, asking, can we get some clarity on any of the young pitching arms if they will have some innings limits? So, Robbie B., you are welcome. I took this question and brought it right to Rocco. I figured I would get the answer that he gave me, and he basically told me that, no, there is no innings limit. Obviously, not a time to cut back. And I agree with Rocco. There's not really another option here behind them. So the Simeon Woods-Richardson of the world, who is clearly at 130 innings, which is the most he's thrown. David Festa, he's at 96. He's about 10 off from his career high. Bailey Ober is, I believe, just 2 innings away from his career high. Jorge Alcala is at 48 innings, which is the most he's thrown in 3 years. Now, yeah, we're in a pennant race, basically, or a division race. You could still say, I guess, to a degree, a pennant race.
Yeah, if they turn it on. Yeah.
There's 30 games left. No time to cut back. There's, now will they get maybe a little creative if a clinching scenario happens and they can start resting some guys? For sure. But we'll see what happens when they get there. But as of now, there is no innings limit for any of those guys, the Simeons of the world, the Festas of the world. I thought it was a little concerning yesterday when when Simeon's velocity was down pretty significantly. He was fine yesterday. I wouldn't call him sharp, but he was fine. But no innings limit. These guys are a full go. They're a full bore. They have to rely on these guys to help them get to the playoffs.
I mean, what a relief that is to hear. And first off, I want to say, what other Twins news source, Twins media source is taking questions direct from listener to manager in the clubhouse? That's worth a like, a subscribe, and a 5-star rating on both Spotify and Apple if I've ever heard one. And there really shouldn't be a reason, in my opinion, why these guys have inning limits on them. You are not in a cushy, comfortable, you're not kicked out on the lazy boy, popcorn in hand. Other teams try to, catch you. You're the team trying to do the catching right now. You have to be winning games. And from the last handful or so, they're 2-7 in their last 9. That's not very good. That's not a team that should be putting any sort of restrictions on these young guys who are impactful and need to be on the mound. These guys know their bodies. And, hey, they're coming up on a career high in innings and all that stuff. Yeah, but if Rocco tells you, Declan, that nobody's on any sort of restriction, everybody's good to go, I would like to assume at least, they've had these conversations in the clubhouse. This kind of reminds me of, you ever seen Ford versus Ferrari? It was like a couple years ago, Matt Damon, Christian Bale, the car racing movie.
Yeah.
They're in the early parts, spoiler alert, but it's based on a true story, so I don't really care. In the early parts, they're developing the car, going through, and there's all these restrictions and all this stuff. And Christian Bale, because he's the car whisperer in this movie, he's like, I know it can go faster. I know we can push it harder. It's like, I'm feeling what I feel, and we can we got to stay within. We don't want to go into the red. You can go into the red sometimes, because that's where you find the best version of yourself. Because if you don't break down that barrier, your body thinks you simply cannot go, past 130 innings, into 150 and some innings and some change. You have to be able to trust yourself, and that's where these guys are probably going to go to Rocco in the clubhouse and say, give me the ball. And I think you and Judd have had this conversation on a few Twin shows prior as well. The mindset of like a Simeon Woods-Richardson has been amazing this season. Give that guy the ball if he wants it. He doesn't care about an innings restriction, and neither should Rocco, neither should you, and neither should somebody sitting up in the 300 section, in aisle J. Give the guy the ball if he wants the ball. It doesn't matter if you look at the sheet if he's on inning 90 or 900. Give him the ball if he wants it and he feels good.
Love that. Yeah, and by the way, I might be battling some connection issue here, AJ. So if I'm choppy or if things look a little weird, bear with me here at From Target Field. We've had great internet throughout this entire season, but yesterday I had to battle a little bit of an issue. I don't know. Maybe they're chopping my internet. I hope not. I'm just trying to get some questions answered from the loyal SKOR North Twins Show audience. But yes, hit the like. If you want me to ask some questions, I can definitely filter some of them in and out to the players and whatnot. But agreed, dude. Simeon's been great for them. He probably starts game 3 of a playoff game, which will be huge for them. And he might be a 4 and fly or 5 and fly type of dude, but that's kind of the bed they're in here. Chris Paddock had a clean MRI come back, so that's a good sign. I still think that's a guy that probably comes out of the bullpen. He is throwing now from 60 feet. So the physical looked good. He passed a physical. He looked clean. The MRI looked clean, so that's all good news. But yeah, they need all these arms as possible, and bullpen arms too. I mean, does Griffin Jax start throwing maybe 2 innings at a time, which I know fans have been wanting him to do now too. So this isn't just starters. There's relievers and other arms involved in here, and they're going to need all these arms to step up. It's a tight race right now in the AL Central, so if they can keep that going, they're going to rely on all these young arms to help them get to the finish line.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, I think, a conversation you had with the great Pat Royce last week about common sense. Common sense is so important in a baseball season, especially when you get into these dog days. I know it's been hot here. It's supposed to cool off later this week, but you can't be worried about trying to win a game a month and a half from now if on a Wednesday night you need 3 outs and you have a 1-run lead. Guess what? You go to the best arm that fits the best matchup. Don't overthink it. What's the answer staring you right in the face? What's your gut telling you? I got to throw Duran. I got to go Griffin Jax. Hey, you know what? He looked good in an inning. We need him out there for 3 more outs. He's probably got it in him. And once again, to my first point, these guys are going to let you know. They're not going out there just blind. They're having conversations. Hey, Skipper, I feel good about this one. Maybe I don't if we can get to this batter. Maybe come out and have a chat with me, something like that. You have to use common sense. Go to the best option. You have to worry about winning baseball games, and with the recent stretch that they've been on, getting back on that right track, because they're very surprisingly still in that playoff push with kind of how they've been the past week or so. They haven't lost too much ground, so they're in a nice little spot too. If they can just get back on a right track and start really grooving like we've been waiting for all season long. Cleveland is finally starting to fade. This is where they have to pounce, and now it seems like the Royals have emerged late in the season as well. But my goodness, you are in a spot where you can still go and win this division if you really want to. Go out and do it. It starts with common sense and giving these guys the ball if they need it.
Yeah, and other bullpen arms too include Scott Blewett, who's been obviously he's been kind of up and down a lot, and he actually was flashing 98 in the gun the other night, which is a big option. Louis Varland, who I know has mostly been used primarily as a starter for the Twins, that's a guy who also flashed some big fastball and big stuff down the stretch last year. Pitched in some playoff games, which was encouraging. That's another option. So September 1st is coming. The Twins can add an extra arm. They can also add an extra position player. So the Twins will get an extra option there starting on Sunday, which is obviously pretty big for them too. So we'll see who that is. I know Brooks Lee is still down in Omaha with the Saints. And from what I've gathered, I would actually not expect Brooks Lee to be activated by Friday when Toronto comes to town. Now, things could change. Injuries could happen. Maybe he has shown enough where he can do that. He's DHing on Wednesday for the St. Paul Saints, but maybe not Brooks Lee coming right back up right away. Now, when that rosters expand for the extra player, maybe Brooks Lee is part of that. They're at a bit of a roster crunch right now in general, so they definitely don't want to just add to it. And I probably should also mention that Michael Tonkin, the guy that they claimed off waivers yesterday, he should be active and here today as well. So that's another option, who obviously looked pretty good with the Yankees, and they just need guys to fill out the back end of the bullpen. I wouldn't be surprised, Age, if there's another waiver claim. If Drew Smiley's out there, we'll see if the Twins can take on that money, which is about $4 million for the rest of the month. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but we know the financial restrictions with this team this season.
There's been enough PR about spending to where we should know that's a lot in a sense, but maybe not for other teams. Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that is another option where there's probably guys we're not thinking of that might be waiver claims now. I believe you need to be on an MLB roster prior to September 1st to be playoff eligible. So, I mean, the next 72 hours or so for the Twins are going to be pretty big here if they want anyone that could help them down the stretch. Last year, Paddock and Barland and Brock Stewart came off injuries, and they were able to kind of help lengthen that bullpen. We'll see which one of those guys steps up again, because they're also going to need extra guys in that bullpen, especially if a playoff game becomes 4 and fly or 5 and fly. You need to get still to the end of the 27 outs, and you're going to need as many guys as possible to help you get there.
And you mentioned the next 72 hours, and Drew Smiley, I think, is the one that a lot of people do know. Do you have anybody else on maybe the Deck's radar, your radar, for who the Twins could potentially be eyeing up here in the next, next 2 or so days of maybe getting on their roster prior to that September 1st deadline?
Yeah, let's see, I thought I saw some other guy, another arm that reached waivers. I know Drew Smiley is one of them, and he pitched still today, I think. Didn't he pitch for your Cubs today? I saw him, even though he's still on waivers. That still means he can play.
Yes,
so Drew Smiley
yes.
was pitching for them today. Unless someone probably gets put on over the next day or two, we'll have to kind of wait and see which one does. If they do claim Smiley, it basically amounts to about $4.5 million, and that's because he has a buyout in his clause and a mutual option for next season, so they have to account for that on top of the 1.9 of the $10.5 million that he was accounted for just in this season alone. Now, other teams might start doing this too, where they're trying to clear some books and find, I wouldn't call it a sucker, but find someone else to take on that money. And this does happen. I mean, hell, this happens in fantasy football all the time, where all of a sudden random good players show up on your waiver wire. And by the way, if you're one of those teams, what the hell? Don't do that. Just keep those guys on your team, you SOB. You don't have to be doing that. But in baseball, it's a little different, because there's actually money and people trying to trim out their fat for the next season's budget. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, I'll see if any other arms kind of potentially stand out for the Twins. They're going to need as many as possible, though.
Oh, yeah. You really can never have too many. And I know, based on some of the comments section here, I know they're like, well, you're trying to burn out everybody. So yeah, so add a couple more. But also, you got to be concerned about winning now. And it's just the position they're in. I know it is a little short-sighted, but you do have to think about being able to get in a position where you actually are in the playoffs. Because if you don't, if you keep the seatbelt too tight, you might not be even get out of the driveway, if that makes any sense. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that waiver wire for the Twins over the next 2 days or so, and we'll have to see if you. Oh, there you are. You're back. Okay. You either blinking for a super long time, or or we were having issues. So, what's next on the extra innings docket?
I mean, I think we'll wrap things up, especially if I'm having a little connection issues here. But I will say, just staying hungry and try to closing out this homestand here, Age, with some successful outings. Yesterday was a wonky game. They've only won 1 game through 5 so far. They have Toronto coming to town. There's an off day on Thursday tomorrow, so the Twins can sleep in their own beds and rest up and know tomorrow they have a little bit of just an off day, and then they can reset against Toronto. But man, one of the worst things they can do here is obviously go through this homestand and basically come under 500, which is not good news, especially with, I know Cleveland was able to take the last game of that 4-game series this afternoon, but Cleveland and Kansas City are tightly jammed with one another, and Twins need to also take care of business here. It's going to come right down to the wire. This is kind of reminiscent of like 2006 when it was the Twins and Tigers and White Sox kind of fighting for the last division spot in the last weeks of the season, and the Twins had those feisty Piranha teams. And for right now, the Twins, they got to get some wins here at home. I thought last night could have been, really a season-turning win for them if they were able to come back from 4-0 down late, and instead, the Twins weren't able to do that. So can they salvage some wins here and get this homestand turned around before they hit the road again as September turns up?
Yeah, this series has been a little disappointing, especially for a Atlanta Braves team that, started the season so hot, but as of somewhat recently, they've just kind of been stepping down further and further on the escalator to where this should have been a little bit more of a even series as is, or the Twins should have been probably running away with it. And now you have to salvage a win here at the end of the night. It's been a tough few days, but if you get a win here, you have the off day tomorrow. I mean, like I said kind of earlier on, it's about getting back on the right track, given where you are in the standings, given how much time. You're not backed into a corner quite yet, but if you wait too long to really make your move, you don't want to be the last. It's fine being the last horse out of the gate, but you eventually have to start making that push. Right now, you're coming around to the home stretch here. You're not quite there, but you have to start thinking about, when are we really going to kick? Where are we going to start? When is the jockey going to start whipping the old behind? When are we going to start really pumping the legs? Because if you keep eyeing up your move, like, oh, we're gonna get him, we're just not yet, we're gonna get him. Eventually, hey, you've got 2 games left, and you're 5 games back, so there's not much you can do. So we'll have to go ahead and see if they can. It starts tonight. Festa's gonna have a tough challenge with Chris Sale opposite him on the mound, but it starts tonight against the Braves.
Hit the like button, subscribe button. This is the SKOR North Twins Show. This is the Extra Innings edition. Declan Goff live here from Target Field, providing you some access from what I learned from the locker room each day. We'll have another Extra Innings episode probably on Friday afternoon as the Twins welcome the Blue Jays. We'll have a Twins show tomorrow at full strength with Mackey and Judd, and maybe a random Twin of the Week too. We'll see if we can muster up one of those. So hit the like button, subscribe button. Appreciate everyone listening and watching Extra Innings. This is the SKOR North Twins Show.